She gave a thunder with her sail, and the boat capsized, not more darling than we never got back.
Okay, if I could have your attention. It's close to 2 o'clock. We'd like to get started on time. We are really grateful for the beautiful weather and glad all of you could come. Thank you so much. Hope the way this will run pretty smoothly today, and we'll have another one again next year. If you decide at the end of the walk you want to purchase one of our brochures, you're welcome to do that. They are $5 a piece. We are going to be starting the walk today with our first mayor, Mayor Angel. And if you'd like to walk with me down the driveway here, we will have a short walk over in here. Anyone who's not able to walk, if you just stay under the tent, we will be having a little program that will tell about each person. Anybody have any questions? We have lots of space over at the other side here if you'd like to gather around. We do not have any microphones today, so we're relying on our voices carrying. Need to project. Our mayor, Mayor Ted Ellis, will be portraying Mayor David Angel, the first mayor of Bluffton.
Thank you. Good afternoon. What a great day to be out walking, renewing some old friendships, I'm sure, for all of us. For the time being, I'm David Angel, the first mayor, billed as the first mayor of Bluffton. And you may have noticed my clothing, which is far from conventional for the time. That's because I've been dead for 151 years. And even Mr. Toma, who you'll meet later, will attest to the fact that you can't expect your clothing to last for 151 years. So I looked up your current mayor and asked him what the current mayor would be wearing, and he said, I can tell you exactly: a red tie, a blue suit, and a white shirt. So borrowed a few from him. Rather good-looking chap, if I do say so myself, and so that's why I'm dressed the way I am. Now, you will see in your program that I've been portrayed as the first mayor of Bluffton, and that's not quite right. You see, my good friend Nelson Kellogg, who was one of the pioneers here in Wells County, said that in 1848 he was the first mayor of Bluffton, and he was right. The city wasn't incorporated until February 12th of 1851, and he was mayor in 1848. But when the charter was granted to the city of Bluffton in 1851, I was appointed as the first mayor of Bluffton, so I'll hang on to that. Nothing against Nelson Kellogg. He is a faithful public servant. I hope someday you can resurrect him as you have me, and maybe hear his story, because it's far more interesting than mine. Again, welcome to this little gathering. I'll tell you a little bit about the city and about myself, and maybe you'll leave here with a little greater appreciation for what we went through back in the 1850s. To say, I was one of the first mayors of Bluffton. There are actually 5 of us mayors here playing here in Section 8A somewhere. Mayor Bergen, Mayor Russell, Mayor Hale, and one more that I've forgotten right now. But there are a lot of us mayors, and a couple of them right across the road. Mayor Quick's right across the road here. So a lot of people are here. Now, I was the only mayor, however, that didn't start here originally. When I died in 1865, I was buried in the cemetery down by the river, and laid there for a little while, and my wife Adeline died in 1877. Well, by that time, Fairview had been laid out and incorporated in about 1874. So my children decided that Mother would be happier here, and so they retrieved me and my mother, Margaret, and our daughter, Jane, from the cemetery that you call the Old Bluffton Cemetery. It was pretty new at the time, but they all lay here, the whole family together. My father was Jacob, and he lived in Greenville, Ohio. That's where we all hail from, and he lies down there yet. We didn't get him brought up here in good enough time. So that's where our family is. Now we grew up, and I grew up in Greenville, Ohio, or in that area. I was born in 1799. Ohio was not yet a state, but it would soon become a state. And the family achieved prominence there. I was a businessman, owned a tavern for about 10 years in my young adulthood. Following that, I was sheriff of Dark County, which is Greenville, Indiana, or Ohio, and then spent just a little time as county auditor to fill a vacancy. I can give you some advice. If you want to be elected to public office many times, as I have, it helps to own a tavern for at least 10 years. But about in 1840, we got to the point where we started hearing about the wonderful opportunities up north in the Wells County area, in the Bluffton area. And so several of us from Greenville, and you'll meet several of my cohorts, began to explore the opportunities that were here in Bluffton. Now, we left Greenville to come here with the idea of finding opportunity. What we did find was a dense growth of forest, swamp all over the place, and huge mosquitoes carrying malaria. But nonetheless, the opportunity was there. And as just to show you how the growth happened in those times, in 1840 it was noted that there were about 12 houses in Bluffton, all spaced very far apart. By the time I became mayor, there were about 500 residents in Bluffton, so over that 10-year span, there was quite a bit of growth. A lot of that due to the plank road that was constructed over an old, dumpy, foggy Indian trail that led from here to Fort Wayne. That plank road was what you would call economic development today, but it provided a much more convenient way for goods and materials to move between Bluffton and Fort Wayne. So I would like to claim credit for a lot of that, but that was actually done by someone who you'll meet a little later on. It was a time when we started the community. To say in 1851 I became mayor, and we had 10 mayors in 10 years. We each served a one-year term. But in that first year, we were charged with kind of bringing order out of the chaos of the frontier. And we passed laws, most of which will be familiar to you today. We passed laws against public drunkenness, furnishing alcohol to minors. We levied a tax on dogs. We enacted a speed limit on horses. They could not go faster than a common trot inside the city of Bluffton, and on and on and on. Many things that we still wrestle with today, I'm sure. But even so, we got through that period in our town's history, and within the next 10 years, townspeople will find that the town doubled in size again. So this is a very prosperous town. I raised 2 sons and 5 daughters here. My 2 sons fought for the Union in the War of Rebellion, and both thankfully returned home. You heard about my daughter Jane, who died when she was 17 and is buried here as well. My daughter Helen remained in Greenville, Ohio, married a silversmith, and did very well for herself. My daughter Lucinda married Jeffrey Bliss, and you may recognize that name because the Bliss family owned a hotel in these parts for quite a while. Then there was Adeline, named for her mother, dear sweet Adeline. Married 3 times. She got along well with the men. Her most prominent husband was a fellow by the name of George Arnold. George was a teacher. He published the Bluffton Chronicle for a period of about 10 years, and was a business partner of a man by the name of John Studebaker. John married my youngest daughter, Rebecca, and I want to introduce them to you today because John Studebaker did very, very well for himself, not only in marrying a very fine woman, but also in his career as business. He's responsible for a lot of what went on in Wells County. With that, I'll direct you over here where Mr. and Mrs. Studebaker are waiting to hear you.
We have John Studebaker, who's being portrayed by Dennis Baining today, and his wife, Rebecca, and it's portrayed by his wife, Becky Baining.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Angel Studebaker. We just got done meeting my father. I was born October 27th, 1822 in Dark County, Greenville, Ohio. And I met and courted my husband, future husband, John Studebaker, in Greenville. We were married July the 7th, 1839, and we had an unusual wedding trip. We came by horseback from Cincinnati to our home, our first home in Bluffton, Indiana. We built a log cabin in the woods, and we were one of very few white people here that was mostly Indians. We had 10 children, 5 of which died in infancy. There are 8 graves around the circle here of 8 of our children. And we outlived, or 2 outlived us. The rest of them died before we died. We had also, with our children, 10 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren. I was very active in the WCTU, which stands for Women's Christian Temperance Union, which I just, you heard my father say he owned a tavern, which I'm not sure how that works. But I was against drinking, I guess, and he wasn't. I also was very active in the church, which would be the Methodist Episcopal Church here in town. And our home was future on, when we were married quite some time, then the museum as you know it now. I died in 1912. There was a short service at the home, at the museum site for my husband, mostly because he was ill of health, and then we moved to the Methodist church where they had a service there. I died after I had taken a fall and broken a limb, and then I had congestion of the lungs. I died and was 90 years old at the time, and I guess that's it.
That's it?
That's it.
That's it.
I'll leave it to you.
All right, I'm John, and my father bought several tracts of land between Murray and Geneva, and he sent me over here in Bluffton area in 1838 to start a business, which we did, and ran a mercantile business. And we ended up traveling back and forth between here and Cincinnati. It took about 15 to 20 days to get our merchandise we would collect here, go down there and sell, trade things, come back for our people here that we would sell to. Most of the time back in 1838 it was the Indians that we traded with, also part of the American Fur Trading Company. So I got a lot of furs from the Indians. We went to Cincinnati and traded and brought goods back here to sell to them. And as you know, in 1839 we got married and hitched and came up here on horseback to live here for a while, a long while. In 1844, the log cabin that I built here originally, just north of the square for my business, outgrew that, and we built a wood frame structure as a business, and outgrew that in 1852 we built a brick building. Don't have the history on where that was actually built, but we lived through close by the area and worked at it for quite a while. I was involved in the plank roads that my father-in-law talked about, and between here and Bluffton and Fort Wayne. Also involved in the railroad for a little bit. First adventure in that didn't go very well, but the second time we got that established and was able to establish some rail service in Bluffton. Also built and owned several mills in Bluffton, Markle, and Warren, and was involved in that business and trading. And I think in 1858 we gave up the business as far as the mercantile goes, but we still established commerce in the 3 elevators that we still owned and done business with. Got involved in the banking as well in the 1850s and ran that clear up until my death. I was blind for like the last 12 years of my life. I still went to work, still was active like every day going to work, and then once my wife passed away, very hard time. And then 9 months later, I passed away as well. So, and my wife is Rebecca, and my real wife is Rebecca. So I think that's all I have to say.
We have Dr. Marcello Gavilanes, who has agreed today to portray Dr. C.T. Melsheimer, and he will tell you about the doctor here in Bluffton that was prominent at the time of the other people here.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to this beautiful day. My name is Dr. Charles Melsheimer, and I was born in Hanover, in Yorktown, Pennsylvania, and eventually I migrated to the Wells County, Indiana, to the friendship and fellowship with a doctor, friend of mine, whom I met in Chicago. My initial studies were in Hanover, Pennsylvania, and subsequently to it, I went to Ashland, Ohio, eventually to Chicago to obtain my medical degree.
I'm so busy. There's just always so much work to do. My name is Martha Cartwright Melsheimer. And originally I was married to a farmer up in Allen County, Indiana. And you can see my husband's name was Andrew, and he died when he was only 41. So for 10 years, I was a widow lady. Well, then I met Dr. Charles, and he had been a widower for 2 years. His first wife's name was Susan. And if you see on this side of the stone is her name. She lived to be 55 years old. Susan and Charles had 6 children, 6 boys and 1 girl. But by the time Susan died, there was only 2 boys and 1 girl left. And over the far stone are 2 of their children. Apparently died at the same time. So you know, back in those days, nobody had immunizations and good care, and those bad diseases came and sometimes wiped out a lot of the family at the same time. Charles is buried back here, and Susan is buried there. And Martha, me here, the second wife, is buried beside my husband, Andrew. So you can see it was all a very friendly situation. So we lived here in Wells County, and Charles and I had 2 sons.
I have been in Wells County, Indiana since 1844. And at that time I was approximately 25 years of age. And through the good grace of God, I met Dr. McClure in Chicago upon my graduation. And that is when Dr. McClure invited me to come and visit Wells County. And at that particular time, I didn't know where Wells County was even found. Therefore, thanks to the friendship of Dr. McClure, I decided to come and visit Bluffton, Indiana, and I did. I liked what I saw, and I stayed in Bluffton since that particular time. Then my recollection is that we had 3 doctors in the county, and Dr. McClure was the second doctor, and I became the 3rd doctor. My practice was very lucrative and large, and because of the quality of physicians that we had in the area at that particular time, then the governor of Indiana, O.P. Morton, decided to confer upon me particularly, as the first assistant surgeon for the 101st Indiana Infantry Division. I served in this position for approximately 4 to 5 months, but because of the rigors of war, my health began to fail, and I had to return to Bluffton to continue my practice. I served as a councilman. I was also president of the Medical Association. I was member of the Art Fellows Lodge here in Bluffton, Indiana. Initially, my membership with the Art Fellows was in Fort Wayne, but because of the transportation and the necessities of my medical practice, I terminated my membership with the Art Fellows Association in Fort Wayne and strictly stayed in Bluffton. My activities in the county consisted of being very, very faithful to the Republican Party, in my faithfulness to God and my Savior as well. And unfortunately, the death of my wife took place at age 67. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to visit now with Charles Grimes. George Keplinger is going to be telling us about Mr. Grimes.
Hello, I'm Charles Julian Grimes. I was born in Bluffton, Indiana in 1898 to George W. and Audie Mason Grimes. My father was born in 1858 in Harrison Township. He worked as in the foundry business. He died in 1902. My mother was born in 1862 to Martha Fitzsimmons Mason and Dr. Leonidas Mason. She died in 1941, and all of my relatives are buried here in the Fairview Cemetery. I have 3 brothers. One died young. I see that 2 years old, or just less than 2 years old. I have one sister. I attended Bluffton High School, Culver Military Academy, Indiana University. My 3 brothers and I were in World War I. I served in the Navy Seabees. I returned to Bluffton after the Navy, worked as a coastal carrier. I died in 1987. And all of my family is buried right here across the road. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to Fairview. My name is Henry Thoma. The year was 1850 when I left a small family farm in Germany at the age of just 17. And I made the trip to sail across the Atlantic here to America. That long and 30-day sail took 30 days, and I landed in Ellis Island in New York and was processed and became an immigrant of our great country, the United States. The same ship that I sailed into Ellis Island sank to the bottom of the ocean of the Atlantic on its return trip back to Germany. Being 17 and eager and determined to find a better life, all alone in this new world, I quickly made friends with a cabinet maker in Findlay, Ohio, and I learned the business of cabinetry in the cabinets trade. There in Findlay, I served as an apprentice for 3 years. At the same time as I was doing my apprentice, I went to school at the Presbyterian Academy there in Findlay. On a fall day in October in 1952, I decided that it was time for me as a young businessman to set out on my own and find a prime location to start my new business. Going west, sailing west on the Wabash River, I came to a small, beautiful bluff. And from being down in that small boat in that bluff, looking up at that beautiful bluff, I had no idea what was up there, but I thought this will be a beautiful place to set down roots. So it's here where I set up shop and started the cabinet business in this little town that would grow up to be known as Bluffton. I quickly found myself quite content with all my life doings in this small town on a beautiful bluff. In 1938, I married my sweetheart Matilda, and to our blessed union, we were blessed with one son. And we gave the name Herman William Thoma. As it was custom back in Europe, furniture making and undertaking was quite a combination business. You see, if you could make a cabinet, you could also have the tools and the skills to make a coffin. So in 1853, I partnered with Jacob Triblett and embarked in a joint venture of furniture and undertaking under the name here in Bluffton of Triblett and Company. Oftentimes when there was a death here in the community, family would come into the store and they'd bring a notched hickory stick. And that hickory stick would give us the height and the width of the person, knowing what size to make that custom casket that was needed. We would make the coffins in our cabinet shop and deliver them out to the house for the service. It was also the job of the undertaker in these days to deliver the coffin to the home, but to complete the embalming, which oftentimes took place in the homes. Help the family place the body in the coffin and assist the family with making those final arrangements. You see, our funerals were pretty primitive. A lot of times just using a springboard wagon. In 1955 in my workshop, just off the southwest corner of the courthouse, I made with my very own hands the first horse-drawn hearse that was pulled on the streets of Bluffton. Many times we would leave on mornings of funerals very early.